In the woods, the sun was already up, casting a warm glow over the winding forest road. A dusty Toyota 4Runner rumbled along the path, carrying a small group of friends toward their weekend escape. Laughter spilled from the windows, light and careless, blending into the trees like it belonged there. Mark had one hand on the wheel, stealing quick glances at Shelby beside him. Her summer dress caught the morning light, and something about the way she smiled at the trees made his chest feel lighter than it should. Maybe this trip would be his chance. Maybe, by the time they drove back, they'd be something more than just two people who knew how to pack a tent. They were close now. The GPS crackled and spat out vague directions that essentially told them to drive straight into the abyss. Mark squinted at the screen. Not helpful, not even a little. In the back seat, Mina hadn't stopped talking about how much she missed Alexa. The two of them had that rare brand of friendship, like chat through an apocalypse and still not notice you're in one kind of close. Zane, sitting beside her, was doing his best impression of someone well-behaved, but the look in his eyes said otherwise. His type didn't care about soulmates. If it moved and smiled, it was a maybe. The engine gave a soft groan as they pulled into a clearing and came to a stop. Doors swung open. The sound of gravel crunching under boots and bags thumping against legs filled the air as they unloaded their gear. Tents, coolers, and enough snacks to outlast a storm. No one noticed when the phone screen flickered. No one saw the GPS quietly correct itself, revealing where they were actually headed. The sign at the entrance was old. Splintered wood, moss curling at the edges like it had been trying to let go for years. Faded letters read, Rivermore National Park, but vines had nearly erased the name. It looked like no one had been there in a while. Maybe no one was meant to be. But that didn't stop the five of them. Mina was the first to skip past the gate, blonde hair bouncing, voice already raised in a goofy drinking song about bears, beers, and bad decisions. "We've got a couple of copies in the morning, baby. I'm Will Smith. To the river we go, hope the gators are slow," she sang, half in tune, raising her plastic cup like a trophy. Behind her, Shelby joined in, adding harmonies that were just as questionable. Alexa groaned but couldn't stop smiling, even as she swatted at her 9th mosquito and muttered, "God, I hate nature." "Alexa," Zane said with a smirk, "what's the weather today?" He ducked the swat she threw at him, twirling a thick branch he'd found like he was auditioning for Survivor Douchebag Edition. The walk to the river was about less than an hour, if you didn't stop every 5 steps. Shelby had to crouch at every wildflower. Alexa had to complain about the heat, the bugs, her shoes, and the way Shelby pronounced moss. Mina floated between them, laughing and filming bad Instagram stories. Zane kept swinging his stick at things, loudly. About halfway down the trail, the trees thickened. The air grew heavier, and the birds, once chirping wildly, faded. The scratches were too deep to be from branches. 4 gashes, jagged and wide, carved into a birch tree like something had grabbed it. "That ain't no squirrel," Zane muttered, his cocky tone cracking just a little. Mark crouched near the base, brushing leaves aside. "Guys." He lifted a faded green backpack, the straps half rotated, the zipper rusted stiff. They opened it, but it was empty. Torn, mold-stained, nothing but damp fabric. Until Mina checked the side pocket. "There's a wallet," she whispered. Inside, a cracked student ID. The face of a teenage boy with wild curls and a big grin. The date? 1983. "Well," Zane said, glancing at the others with a half laugh. "At least it's a popular camping spot." No one laughed with him. Even Alexa stayed quiet. When they reached the river, the silence felt heavier. The water barely moved, still and glassy, like a lake pretending to be something else.
Trees leaned in from both sides, hiding the sky. And then, rain. No warning, just a soft drizzle that thickened within minutes, turning the forest dim and dripping. The group rushed to pitch the tents, awkward hands fumbling with ropes and pegs.
"This is great," Alexa grumbled, tying her hair into a frizzing bun. "It's atmospheric," Shelby said, grinning as she spun once in the rain.
That's when she saw it. In the water, something shimmered, just beneath the surface. A glint, a shape. Maybe metal, maybe gold, maybe imagination. Shelby stepped toward the riverbank, mesmerized. "Do you guys see that?" She called out, ankle already in the water, but no one answered, because something else was moving. A shadow, long and low, sliding silently beneath the river's surface, closing in behind her. And then, crack. A branch snapped to their left, loud and violent. Shelby jumped back just in time as something blurred past their camp, fast, heavy enough to shake the ground. They turned to follow the sound. Splash. Water sprayed as something hit the river behind them. They ran to the edge, but there was nothing. Just ripples, and the feeling that something was still out there, watching. The rain didn't stop, not after 10 minutes, not after an hour. The trail back to the car had turned into a slick slope of mud and moss. They couldn't hike it safely, not in the dark, not in this storm. So they stayed, 3 tents, huddled close together near the river's edge. "Let's stay together," Mark said quietly, watching the trees. If something happens, they began gathering their stuff and zipping into the biggest tent. The rain thudded against the fabric like a heartbeat. Inside, the air was warm and damp, full of nervous breathing and quiet tension. Nina had kicked off her boots and was sitting cross-legged by the camping lantern, fingers twitching in her lap. Alexa curled in a blanket, arms tight across her chest, face pale. "Okay," she whispered. "Someone please say that was a deer." Shelby zipped her rain jacket halfway and glanced toward the flap. It wasn't a deer. Whatever it was fast and big. "Maybe it was just a bear," Mark offered, though his tone didn't sound convinced. A hiss outside the tent, low and sharp, like a cat warning something away. Everyone froze. A second later, splash, something hit the water. Then, silence. "What the hell was that?" Nina whispered. No one moved, no one breathed. The minutes stretched. The storm outside roared on, but inside the tent, time moved like molasses. Mark reached for his backpack and pulled out the wallet they'd found earlier. "His name was Tyler Monroe," he said, forming the cracked ID. "He was 17. You think he died here?" Nina asked. No one answered. The rain had finally slowed, leaving the forest soaked and whispering. "We shouldn't all sleep at once," Mark said, voice low but steady. "Someone needs to keep watch." Zane shot up like he'd been waiting for this moment all night. "I got this," he said, chest puffed, voice tripping with bravado. "I don't care what it is. If it comes at me, it goes down." Everyone exchanged a glance. "Sure," Alexa teased, arching an eyebrow. "And what exactly do you plan to do if something comes for us?" "Protect you," Zane grinned. "Well, better hope you don't get any funny ideas," Shelby said, with a sly smile. "Or else we might have to tie you up." Mina laughed. "Yeah, Zane, we're watching you." As they joked, Shelby edged closer to Mark, her fingers brushing his arm. When a sudden noise rustled nearby, she grabbed his hand tight and leaned into him, resting her head on his chest. Alexa unlocked her phone. The screen lit up with a photo of a scruffy little dog in a sun hat, wearing a bright pink collar and the kind of smile only dogs know how to pull off. "Miss you, Bella." She reached into her bag and quietly pulled out the collar, fingers tracing the worn fabric like it still held a heartbeat. The forest outside seemed to hold its breath. Zane had dozed off, his breathing deep and even. No one noticed the subtle rasp of claws sliding through canvas. A zipper split open without a sound. Something crawled inside. Low, deliberate. The thing paused, breathing in the scent of sleep. Then it grabbed the leg of a body, carefully, almost gently, and dragged it backward, inch by inch, through the tent flap and into the night. Alexa didn't wake until her feet touched the water. The shock of it, cold and wrong, snapped her eyes open, but she couldn't scream. Her mouth filled with water before she had the chance. She thrashed, disoriented. Dark shapes flickered overhead. Trees, stars, gone. She was underwater. Fully under. Something was dragging her down. Her legs flailed, and that's when she felt it. Teeth, clamped around her calf, locking tighter every time she kicked. Her chest heaved, begging for air. She clawed upward, toward the surface, but her arms were heavy, slower than they should be. Her heartbeat was a war drum in her ears. She fought, kicked, twisted, and failed. The thing only pulled harder, its jaws grinding tighter around bone. Whatever grabbed her now started to spin around. The dark water is filled with blood. Her throat convulsed. She couldn't hold it anymore. She breathed. Water flooded in, burning, choking, violent. Her body arched, convulsing, nerves screaming. The pain was bright at first, then it dulled. Her vision blurred. Her limbs slowed. The panic faded like a bad dream breaking apart. And then silence. Stillness. The pull on her leg eased. The water around her felt warmer somehow. Softer. A shape moved in the deep. Not the thing that took her. Something else. Something familiar. It drifted closer, and as the shadow formed into a small, blurry figure, ears perked, tail swaying, Alexa felt the last flicker of fear melt away. A dog. Bella. Her lungs didn't hurt anymore. Her last thought came gently, without panic, like a whisper rising through the water. "I'm coming, Bella." Somewhere past midnight, the tent began to move, slowly, almost gently at first. But then, with a force that made their blood run cold, it started sliding. Sliding away, away from their camp. Their eyes flew open as the canvas shifted under them like a leaf caught in a current. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the rain. Something outside had grabbed the tent and was dragging it across the wet earth. Hearts pounded, hands clawed at the walls, but the creature gripped the entire tent entrance in one monstrous clutch. Mark fumbled for his pocket knife, fingers shaking. But before he could cut, the tent came to a sudden stop. Heavy footsteps pounded into the darkness, then vanished, running away as fast as they'd come. They burst out of the tent, gasping for air, hearts pounding like war drums. Panic clung to their skin as the night swallowed their breaths. Behind them, no one noticed the water quietly creeping up, slow and relentless, swallowing the ground where the tent had stood. They had nowhere to run. The road ahead was slick enough to swallow a careless step. In the chaos, no one noticed Alexa was missing. Mina's voice was barely a whisper, trembling as she leaned close to Shelby, still in panic. "I really need to go out. I can't hold it anymore." They didn't go far, just enough to find a spot behind some trees. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, screams tore through the night. And right behind them, the unmistakable sounds of a struggle. Branches snapping, feet pounding on wet leaves, a desperate fight for breath. The others, hearts pounding in their ears, voices cracking. "Shelby!" Mark shouted. "Where are you?" His heart sank like a stone. "No, Shelby! Don't take her from me." He ran, legs burning, lungs raw, chasing the sound of footsteps that were already growing too faint. The forest twisted around him, cruel and endless, and the weight of his panic made every step heavier. But the sound was fading. She was fading. He screamed her name, just a broken noise swallowed by the trees. He turned, spun, searched wildly. Nothing. He collapsed where he stood, fists in the dirt, chest heaving. The wind carried his grief through the trees, whispering it in every direction. A tall figure emerged from the trees, half shadow, half myth. It watched Mark from the dark with eyes too still, too knowing. Then, almost without a sound, it moved. One long step, then another. And before Mark could react, the thing stood in front of him, towering and silent. Mark barely had time to inhale. With one swift motion, the creature scooped him up, not violently, but with a firm, no-nonsense grip. The kind used for picking up cats who absolutely do not consent. "Hey! Hey! Put me down!" Mark shouted, flailing and smacking its broad chest with panicked fists. "This is not okay. This is very much not okay." The creature didn't flinch. It held him tight, but not too tight, just determined. Its heavy footsteps thundered through the forest. Trees blurred past. Mark's heart pounded like a trapped bird. Then, in the distance, a car, parked, undisturbed, and next to it, two figures. Two women. Mark's breath caught. Mina, Shelby, alive. He stopped struggling. He stopped screaming. The creature stopped just a few feet from the car. It crouched low and gently set Mark down, like he was something fragile, something important. Mark stumbled a little, still dazed, still trying to process the fact that he was alive. He looked up, but the figure was already turning away. Then, without hesitation, it bolted back into the woods, massive strides, urgent, focused, gone, swallowed by trees and shadow. Zane pushed through the underbrush, trying to keep up with Mark's fading silhouette, but the woods had a way of swallowing sound and people. Within minutes, the trail vanished. So did Mark. Now he was alone. Branches clogged at his clothes as he turned in slow circles, hoping for a glimpse, a sound, anything. Behind him, the faint rush of the river still murmured through the trees. Zane hesitated, then turned back toward the sound. If he couldn't find Mark, maybe Mark could find him. He'd wait by the water. At least the river wasn't moving. Zane sat on a large rock, still trying to catch his breath. His mind reeled. None of it made sense. The woods, the panic, it all swirled like a storm inside him, but nothing would settle. He couldn't make it make sense. Then, a hiss. Low, sharp, close. He turned, heart already racing. Another hiss from the opposite side, and then he saw them. Crawling from the shadows, emerging like nightmares made flesh. Alligators. Huge, slow-moving, eyes locked on him. They came from all directions. Silent, but certain, like they already knew he was theirs. Zane jumped to his feet, slipping on the damp rock. He was just about to run when something lunged from the side. Fast, silent, brutal, clamped. Its jaws locked around his leg and yanked. He hit the ground hard, pain flashing through him like fire. The gator rolled, spinning him violently, dragging him across the mud. His leg twisted, snapped. He screamed, raw and ragged. More gators moved in, jaws parting. One reared up. Zane's last sight was a gaping mouth rushing toward his face. And then, silence. Only the sound of the feast remained, wet and slow, echoing through the trees. Mark ran to Shelby, wrapping his arms around her like he might lose her all over again. His chest heaved, eyes burning, the fear still clinging to him like smoke. He didn't say anything, he just held her, tight enough to stop the world from slipping away. Then he reached for Nina, pulling her in too. Mark shook his head, his voice cracked. "But how? How did you survive? What was that thing?" He glanced around the dark woods, then back at the others, wide-eyed. Was that Bigfoot? And why the hell didn't it kill us? Shelby grabbed Mark's hand and pulled him toward the gate. The undergrowth that had once hidden it was now torn apart, flattened, broken. Branches snapped like bones. And there, half buried in mud and leaves, was a rusted sign. "Warwing alligators. Do not enter." Mark stared at it. "You've got to be kidding me." Shelby didn't flinch. Her voice was quiet. "I think he just wanted to help." Mark turned to her, still dazed. "He." She nodded slowly. "He didn't hurt us. He could have, but he didn't. I think." She looked back toward the trees, her voice almost a whisper. "I think he's shy. He left us here and ran." Then, a scream, sharp, distant, and human. The blood drained from their faces. Shelby froze. Nina covered her mouth with both hands. Mark's voice broke into a whisper. "Zane." Another scream followed, this one deeper, rough, not an animal, something else. A sound that rattled through the trees like thunder laced with grief, not rage. Failure. A cry that said he couldn't save him. The forest fell silent again. Only the echo remained. If you like this tale of doom and bad decisions, tap that subscribe button. It's way safer than heading into the woods. Allegedly.